Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bar podcast. I am your host, Denisa Tova, and I am here to bring you the real behind the scenes stories of people who have shaped the legal world. And today I am super excited to introduce you to an absolute powerhouse in the New York legal scene. And yes, I am talking about the wonderful Judge William Condon. This man has had quite a journey, making waves not just in a courtroom, but far beyond, and being a pivotal figure in the New York State Supreme Court, dealing with some high profile cases to sharing his immense wisdom with students. And I mean, he's done it all. And now he's channeling all that experience into his private mediation practice, which is really phenomenal. So to know more about his dynamic journey, don't forget to check out his detailed bio, which is linked below. So Judge Condon, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Denisa.
So, the goal of this podcast was to humanize the legal profession, but, I don't think you are human because you have a very special blood type running through your veins, don't you?
Yes, I do. And that I share that blood type with my philosophy on life, and that is be positive.
I love it. Actually, when I heard it the first time, I thought it was so wonderful. I never thought about it that way. Well, and I'm glad that you have a great sense of humor. That actually does make you human. So before we dive into your blood type, though, I really just want to say it's a real privilege to have you on the podcast because your career trajectory is quite notable. Let's talk about your transition from being a well-respected judge to now guiding people through conflicts as a mediator in private practice. I understand that courts are backlogged and many people are actually seeking mediation as a way to resolve their conflict. So, what sparked this change and how your time as a judge is actually helping you and litigants, or I shouldn't say litigants, couples in this new role?
Well, frankly, it was a natural transition, especially with respect to the civil aspect of law. I sat on the bench for 14 years. For the better part of 12 of those years, I was doing felony trials, murder cases, significant felonies, which are a different animal. Uh, for the last 2.5 years, with the exception of one prominent criminal case that I presided over, I've been doing civil work, medical malpractice cases, labor law cases, commercial cases, personal injury. And those are the types of cases that I'm handling now. And the job description is very similar to what I was doing on the bench. We've got different sides. They have a dispute, and we're looking to get that dispute resolved. Sometimes it requires a trial, and it takes six strangers sitting in a jury box to give those parties an answer as to what the resolution is. Ideally, if I can get the parties together and get them to be positive, we can settle the case. And that is by far the most productive way to resolve this type of litigation. Um, and post COVID, there have been delays in the city, notably in the city venues, that have led to a lot of trial lawyers going to alternative dispute resolution, otherwise known as ADR, in order to resolve their cases more expediently and fairly.
So it sounds like you've had a practical approach then, and you have it now. I think that's a great perspective to bring into that this field and much needed to cut down delays and fees, and so that is truly wonderful. On that note, to sort of bringing people together, the heartbeat of the podcast, as I mentioned, is to reveal the more human side of the legal profession, and not only changing how professionals are interacting with each other instead of with more civility, but also how the outside is looking at the legal profession. So, from your vantage point, could you share your thoughts on how the legal profession can cultivate a more collegial and respectful environment and perhaps work toward even uplifting the perception of the legal profession in the public eye?
Well, to be honest, and not just because I practiced most of my legal career in Suffolk County, but they should use Suffolk County as a model. There is a spirit of civility and fraternity among the men and women who practice law out in Suffolk County. A handshake still counts out here, where it doesn't necessarily in other venues. There's a profound mutual respect between the plaintiff side and the defense side, and in very many cases, real friendship between the litigants. So you might try a case against somebody you're on opposite sides, but it's a friend of yours, and so there is mutual respect, and usually that leads to a just result. Both attorneys being professional, representing their clients diligently, but ultimately reaching a fair result. And that's what I try to achieve as a mediator and or arbitrator on each case that I handle.
So, going back to your blood type, what's really sound, sorry, I just can't let it go. Be positive. It sounds like a great life motto. How is this attitude showing up in your daily interaction with the outside world?
Well, uh, I guess I think the litigants like coming before me. We don't make things personal. We try to make them professional. And uh, by nature, you know, litigation inherently involves conflict. You want to try and minimize that, and you want to get both sides to see the advantages, the arguments of the other side. You know, now as a judge, you've got a gavel, you've got the authority, you're going to dictate what the result is. As an arbitrator or a mediator, you're suggesting to sides, you're trying to bring them closer, and try and resolve it so that both sides walk away with a measure of satisfaction, knowing that they've done their job and that you've treated their clients fairly. That's what I try to foster in my business.
So, stepping outside of your business, there is a buzzword these days. It's about balancing work and life. To me, it's more about not losing sense of yourself. So if part of certain activity gives you joy and energizes you rather than drains you, to me, that's not really work. Like for an example, we spoke doing this podcast has nothing to do with my services. So when I'm actually looking to reset, I may be working on my podcast and it doesn't feel like work. It rejuvenates me. So for you,
Right.
I know you have a thirst for life that's outside of mediation and courtroom. So what does that reset button look like for you, and how do you enjoy spending time outside of work?
For me, the secret is to keep moving. I try to stay as active as I can. My wife and I will, as we've discussed prior, we ride our bikes. We try to stay as active as we can. We're in our mid 60s now, so we're not running any marathons anymore. But we try to keep going and get outdoors. The East End, where I live, is such a beautiful place, and there were so many great places to go. The beaches, the vineyards. We try to take advantage of all of that while we're out here, and Mother Nature. I have a working farm less than 100 yards from my front door, and I love that. I think it's great, and so we try to keep going as much as we can. And I second what you said a moment ago. When you're doing something that you love, something that you're interested in, it's not work, and it's very satisfying.
You've also traveled quite a bit. I remember we chatted about Europe briefly, and I shared with you that I was born and raised in Prague, Czech Republic. And you mentioned, I think you did that you backpacked across Europe during your law school days. If that in fact is, if I understood that correctly, can you share like the most memorable experience from your travels then?
Um, if there are any law students watching this podcast, I'm going to make a suggestion, and you should definitely do it because as you're preparing for the New York State Bar exam, you're going to be working like crazy, and your focus has to be laser sharp on that test. Schedule something for when after you take the test so that you have something to look forward to. What my friends and I did was, and this is a long time ago, it's amazing how cheaply we did it. We took the bar exam. 2 days later, we got on a, boy, this is, I'm dating myself, a People's Express plane and flew to London and spent the next 6 weeks backpacking all across Europe. We bought your rail passes and just traveled by train everywhere, and got a taste of a lot of different places. The most beautiful place I've been, and in fact, I got married there, is Sorrento in Italy. And in fact, my wife and I, for our 10-year anniversary, we're bringing all four of our kids back there in 2025 to so that they can experience it. I love Italy. It's just, and I'm mostly Italian, so uh, the it's a great place to be, and it re-energizes me every time I go. So, um, and I look forward to the pasta and the pizza as well.
I was going to ask if you remember enjoying the European beer, which which is
Oh
nothing like.
well, two best beers I've ever had uh, were Guinness in Dublin, where it is fresh. There's nothing like it. And then the Hofbrau beer in Munich, which is
Mm.
also, I mean, so fresh you can taste the hops in it. There's no preservatives, obviously, and it's just a very natural experience. And my son, when he graduated college, wanted to go to Oktoberfest, to the actual Oktoberfest in Munich, and we did that, and it was a great time. Best pretzel, best beer you'll ever have.
I think I'm partially biased toward actually Czech beer, but the German beer
I got
is
to
a
try
close
that out.
second for me. Now, you're also a golf enthusiast, as I understand. What are some memorable places you golfed?
Well, I've golfed at where golf was invented, the old course in Scotland,
Wow.
uh, which was very memorable. Uh, for those that don't know about St Andrews, that's where the sport was actually invented. The first tee and the 18th hole are right in the middle of town. So when you were teeing off on hole one or putting out on hole 18, you've got a whole town looking at you. And I have to say, being on that first tee is about as nervous as I've ever been. Thankfully, it worked out, but it can get your nerves rattling.
It was actually, I just thought about a funny, I'm not a golfer, but I saw a funny thing the other day. And since you have a great sense of humor, I think you might appreciate that. So I've heard that golf is as much about character as it is about the skill. So, given your expertise, if you were to be a golf club in a set, which one do you think you would be and why?
That's a great question, and one that I certainly didn't anticipate. But I will
Good.
say, yeah, I would say the 5 wood because it's the most versatile of all the clubs in the bag. You can hit it off the tee, you can hit it into the green, you could even putt with it. So uh, I'll go with that.
I love that. And it didn't take you long to think about it. So it really shows your passion. Um, What are you reading these days?
I know it's not a new book. I've had it for a while. I got it as a gift, but I'm really enjoying Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I recently, again, another older book, finished the biography, the John Adams biography, which I thought was incredible. Um, and I read my Sunday Times. My wife and I, on Sundays, we like to grab a few bagels, go to the beach down in West Hampton, and just lay back and read the Sunday Times and hang out and look at the ocean. It's That's another be positive experience.
I love that. And then there's something about actual paper. Are you talking about actual paper?
Oh
Not
yeah,
reading it electronically? No, actual paper,
yeah.
right?
I get
Yes.
both, but on the weekends we get the paper version, and I don't know. I'm kind of I guess a little bit of an old school guy, so I still read the physical paper.
I love it too. I actually do. Even same thing with a book. I mean, I do listen to many, many books on audio, but it's not the same. And
It also
so
makes it
that's good.
easier to do the crossword.
See, I mean, you have so many interests. This is really great. And on a final note, I will ask you, what is your all-time favorite movie and why?
Oh boy, uh, my all-time favorite movie. Um, it, it's the answer is probably going to be not what you expect. I'm a big fan of Stanley Kubrick, and I would say my favorite movie is probably 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I saw as a probably 11-year-old back in the maybe 1970. It was made in 1968, but I'm very big into the directorial aspect of it, and I love Kubrick films. Um, as far as from a literary perspective, I love The Natural. I'm a big baseball fan, and Bernard Malamud's The Natural was not only a great book, but it was a great film too, with Robert Redford, if you recall.
I do, and there. You have so many interests. There's so much depth to you, and it's really refreshing, to meet someone with so many passions and really, like I said, just true zest for life. And look, when we spoke on the phone, it was very, very brief, and I've learned so much more about you. And Judge Condon, it has been truly enlightening to learn about your journey, and both personally and professionally, and your experiences inside. It's just truly inspiring, and reminding us all to be positive in every aspect of life. So thank you so much for being with us today on Beyond the Bar podcast.
It's a good way to go, and thank you, Denise, for having me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And for all of you out there listening and watching, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more candid conversations like this one. And also, if you want to be part of restoring the humanness to this profession, be sure to leave your comments under the published episode on my YouTube podcast channel called Beyond the Bar Podcast. And I am Denisa Tova, your host.